Okay, welcome to our Toxic Parents book club reading. Today we are going to keep reading and we'll see what comes up. There's an option if you guys wanted to answer the questions yourself. There's some questions in here that you could have answered yourself if you wanted. Also, I mentioned that we have our survey, so some of you may have done that and gotten some insights. I know the topic is not easy, and for those of you who I've talked to about it, it's heavy. I know it's very heavy. A lot's coming up for you. You're relating potentially some very deep memories of your childhood or of how your parents are, and maybe you're even still in relationship with some of these people now, and you can see things and it's painful because once you see that, it's hard to not see that, and then you're like, you just want to tell them and have them understand so they can just change and be better. And that's really hard to just kind of withstand it, So, but I would say if you can just hang in there and keep learning and keep trying to just better understand, because you'll start getting a relief when you understand yourself better and how you became the way you became, And sometimes, like I said, when we read other people's stories, it's easier. Take a little breather instead of always putting yourself in the hot seat. So that's what I want to do today, is just keep reading and just relax. Nobody's going in the hot seat. You can analyze yourself with your therapist and also on on your own. But for now, let's read about somebody else. Okay? Sound good? Okay. So I folded it over here. I think we left off on the page 16. That third paragraph at the bottom there. Toxic parents. So the sentence right before it said the expression, "It's just a phase," becomes a standard assurance for understanding parents who remember their own teenage years and appreciate rebellion as a normal stage of emotional development. And that would be how the parent would think if you're in a reasonably stable family. So in other words, authoritative type of parents. They'd say, okay, it's normal that you're going to be going through some changes as a teenager and that you're going to be differentiating from me as your mom and dad and rebelling and trying to push boundaries and limits. That's part of growing into becoming an adult. Toxic parents aren't so understanding. From toilet training through adolescence, they tend to see rebellion or even individual differences as a personal attack. They defend themselves by reinforcing their child's dependence and helplessness. Instead of promoting healthy development, they unconsciously undermine it, often with the belief that they're acting in their child's best interest. They may use phrases such as, "Oh, it builds character," or "she needs to learn right from wrong." But their arsenals of negativity really harm their child's self-esteem, sabotaging any budding independence. No matter how much these parents believe they're right, such assaults are confusing to a child, bewildering in their animosity, their vehemence, and their suddenness. Our culture and our religions are almost unanimous in upholding the omnipotence of parental authority. It's acceptable to express anger at our husbands, wives, lovers, siblings, bosses, and friends, but it's almost taboo to assertively confront our parents. Isn't that interesting when you think about that? It's very rare, that you would confront your parent about something, even as an adult. It's like they're saying almost taboo, like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should respect your parents. Your parents are like gods, Look at how much they've done for you, right? So it's considered like very, very bad to confront them on something that they did, Looks like you're very ungrateful, unappreciative, and how often have we heard the phrases, "Don't talk back to your mother," or "Don't you dare shout at your father"? The Judeo-Christian tradition enshrines the taboo in our collective unconscious by pronouncing God the Father and directing us to honor thy father and mother. And in the Vedas, they say mother's the first guru, 1,000 times more important than the father and all that. 1,000, yeah. So the idea finds voices in our schools, our churches, our government, quote unquote, a return to family values, even in our corporations. According to the conventional wisdom, our parents are empowered to control us simply because they gave us life. The child is at the mercy of his godlike parents. And like the ancient Greeks, never knows when the next lightning bolt will strike, but the child of toxic parents knows that the lightning is coming sooner or later. This fear becomes deeply ingrained and grows with the child. At the core of every formerly mistreated adult, even high achievers, is a little child who feels powerless and afraid. And that last bit, the Babaji had highlighted that last sentence. At the core of every formerly mistreated adult, even high achievers, is a little child who feels powerless and afraid. And he actually put a bracket around the whole paragraph there. So this is really important, to think about that our parents, like we said last time, are godlike, they're on a pedestal. Every child kind of sees their parents as something very special, important, that you don't challenge, you don't push back. But they feel like that they don't have usually empathy for the child. So they feel that they can basically lash out at you and not apologize, not realize how much they scared you, throw you around like a sack of potatoes, abuse you, use you to help, whether you're lonely or you need someone to talk to or you need someone to go somewhere with you, or who knows what you need to take care of your little brother or something, right? So the parents, they don't think about how they're affecting you and how much powerful you think they are. As a little kid, you're looking so much up to them that you would never ever push back. So that means it puts us in a situation where we're kind of hyper vigilant. We're waiting because we know the lightning bolt's going to come. We just don't know how. It puts the kids in a very kind of precarious situation, and it makes you very anxious. That you're always on high alert for that, really. And it says it becomes deeply ingrained in us, So then what happens, samskara land-wise, Vedic psychology-wise, is deeply ingrained, meaning it's a very heavy samskara. So that means as an adult, even if the world's most nicest person comes to you and is nice to you, how you're going to interpret it is through, they're nice to me today, but probably they really want something from me. You're going to have some version of the story that was formed and was true, actually, of your childhood, probably. It probably was true that they did want something from you. But then as an adult, when actually somebody comes who does not want something from you and is just trying to be kind, you will not be able to receive that. It will either feel gross to you, you'll feel distrustful, like I'm just waiting, the lightning bolt's going to strike. And then the worst part is, oftentimes you will behave in a way to make the lightning bolt strike. You don't reciprocate back. You don't acknowledge. You don't appreciate, or you do something to try to take advantage of them, even because they're so nice. So you're like, oh, they're so nice, they'll keep giving, they'll keep, I can send them 10 emails in a day and they'll keep responding. I'll send them all the text message with all my issues and they'll respond. Whatever the thing is, if you can see the niceness in that person, you're going to try to use that person to get all the things that mom or dad or whoever that person was who didn't give it to you. You're going to try to milk it out of that person. And if that person has a good heart and they're in the mode of sattva and they're trying to be, maybe on a spiritual path, they're trying to be helpful, they'll probably do their best to support you, But then for you, what you'll do is you'll turn it into some way that now you're making also them the bad guy. Not seeing how much they've done for you, how much they've given to you. Even that person who's nice, you do it to. Because you can't quite fathom that there's somebody who's actually like a good person who has your best interest at heart. Because you had a toxic parent who didn't have your best interest at heart. So in other words, because that some scars in you of having the toxic parent, you will make every relationship toxic. Bless you. Yeah. So because it's in you, you know what I mean? Then you're, whatever relationship you're in, you'll make that one toxic too. That's the sad part about having a toxic parent. They've kind of like put some black dye in some water, so now the water's all gray and brown and like dirty. So you're just pouring dirty water wherever you go, but you don't see it. Instead, you're like, see, I knew I didn't trust her. I knew I didn't trust her. I knew I didn't trust him. They're bad. Here's why, always analyzing and doubting instead of seeing the goodness in somebody. Like what must be the mental state of that person who's continually giving their time to me or giving their fill in the blank to me, right? Trying to always uplift me and support me. Instead, you oftentimes you don't trust them, you push them away, you want to drag them down, something that's not clean. on your side, you know. Or they don't have anyone else who's kind to them, so I'll do it. But at the same time, the person who's doing it doesn't have any empathy, not realizing at all what position you're putting that person in, you know. Not at all like what their day must be like when they're interacting with you, on top of everything else they're trying to do. It's more just you're just trying to get the juice or the sweetness out of the situation, and not thinking on the other side what it must be like to be them and have you in their life, you know. That's a very rare skill. And the reason why we don't know how to do it is because our parents never did that for us, you know. They never thought, how must my child feel when I treat her like that? When I slap her or say something mean to her or something, how must they feel? Or ignore her, give the silent treatment. Your parents not thinking that. They're just acting on their sheer raw emotions. You know, so because you weren't empathized with, then how are you going to be able to empathize with anybody else? You know, so that's why the cycle just keeps continuing. One relationship after the other, you know. And then somebody comes to therapy and says, I can't figure it out. What is wrong with all these people? You know, what is wrong with all these people that I'm trying to be in relation with? Nobody understands anything, you know. So it's a hard thing to get out of, you know. And like I said, the samskars are so strongly cemented in from childhood that it's not like the therapist or the guru can say something. And then you'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me, I got it, you're right. I should change, I am like that. Or it doesn't work like that, you know. That's why the best way to do it is teaching and telling stories. And then if you keep listening and listening, then you can be like, could I be like that person in that story? Could that be me? And would I really want to make somebody else feel like that? Maybe, you know, maybe then the person might start wanting to change. But the change would have to really come from a deep insight the person gets, you know, in themselves, and then they actually want to change. Instead of saying, the worst is when somebody gets the insight, but they don't get it themselves. You know, someone tells them, you're being annoying. So then they'll write to you and say, I know I'm being annoying, but I can't help it. That's how I am. That's just how I am. And they keep going. So that's probably how they were treated in some way as a kid, being abused. So they give themselves permission to it, acting like they have some insight. But that's even worse, you know. If that's how you are, then you have to change it and not put people through that. But that's not how it goes, you know. And usually your parents don't do that, right? They might say, I know I shouldn't have that drink. I shouldn't be drink. You guys don't like it when I drink all night. But that's how I am. What are you going to do? You know? What are you going to do? You could have had it worse. You're lucky you have a roof over your head. You know? There's always like things like that where there's not a lot of insight. But it's like a fake plastic rose. When you go to the restaurant, there's some fake thing, you know, so it looks real. And you get close and you're like, no, it's not real. It doesn't have any scent. It's fake. It's plastic. That's these kind of sayings. You know, like they show that they actually have maybe an insight. And you're like, oh, wow, this is promising. They got an insight, so they're going to change. No. They use the insight as a reason to keep doing what they're doing.
Could you maybe readjust the mic from this? It's over.
Oh.
So if you push it down.
It's in a hole thing. Like I can't push it further, but I could put it up here. Is that better? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So at the core of every formerly mistreated adult, even high achievers, is a little child who feels powerless and afraid. And the truth is, that's who the parents are too. The parents are also the same, you know. They had been abused. There's no way they'd act like that if they hadn't. So it's like a 1 2-year-old and it's like the mother's a 2-year-old and so is the child. It's not that they're more mature. Their body's older, and all that means is they've had more experiences to confirm that what they're doing is right. So it's like 2 little kids, you know. So the cost of appeasing the gods. As a child's self-esteem is undermined, his dependence grows, and with it, his need to believe that his parents are there to protect and provide. The only way emotional assaults or physical abuse can make sense to a child is if he or she accepts responsibility for the toxic parent's behavior. Isn't that interesting? So no matter how toxic your parents might be, you still have a need to deify them. Even if you understand on one level that your father was wrong to beat you, you may still believe he was justified. Intellectual understanding is not enough to convince your emotions that you are not responsible. So Babaji highlighted that sentence. No matter how toxic your parents might be, you still have a need to deify them, to make them like a deity. They can do no wrong. As one of my clients puts it, quote, I thought they were perfect. So when they treated me badly, I figured I was bad. That's how it goes. Kids think their parents are perfect, right? So they treat you badly. They couldn't do anything wrong. They're perfect. I'm the bad one. There are two central doctrines in this faith of godlike parents. Number one, I'm bad and my parents are good. Number two, I'm weak and my parents are strong. So if any of you are working on yourselves, one idea would be to take those two as a homework, and just write those two concepts down and then look in your life and see if you're doing that with anybody now. In your current adult life, is there some relationship you're in where you're definitely defaulting to think I'm the bad one and that other person's good, or I'm the weak one and that other person's strong? Are you projecting those thoughts which perhaps got put into you in childhood from a toxic parent? Are you still living like that and projecting those onto relationships that may not necessarily be true? Maybe you're not the bad one. Maybe they're not the bad one either. That's the thing. We don't really know how they are, but at least maybe you're not the bad one. Why do we have to walk in defaulting like that? This black and white thinking where all of a sudden someone else is so good and you're so bad. It may not be like that.
Can also there be a thing like thought in a relationship that this person, I am needy and this person is giving. I'm always taking and the other person is always giving.
Mm-hmm.
Like this kind of thing is...
That's shunya. That is what they do. So if you're shunya, that's probably what you're doing. You're taking and the other person's giving. You wouldn't be attracted to another shunya, because what are you going to get from them? So if you're not shunya, if you're a different type and you're thinking that, maybe that's faulty thinking.
I heard you always say Sunya is taking, but I think you mean taking like energy and emotions. Not that they don't give things, right?
They could. But when you're around them, you're feeling drained.
Okay.
You're feeling drained because they're emotionally needy, I mean, they could give things. They can give something physically, but they're still looking for your love, for your attention, for your time, for your, So maybe it's not physical. The need is mostly emotional, to be validated and seen by mom. So they can give, but there's a little string attached. I'll give you all this stuff, but you better love me and give me a lot of attention, make me feel special. Yeah. It's not that they're just giving generously because they're so full. Yeah. Okay. So these are powerful beliefs, right? These two beliefs: I'm bad, my parents are good. I'm weak, my parents are strong. These are powerful beliefs that can long outlive your physical dependence on your parents. These beliefs keep the faith alive. They allow you to avoid facing the painful truth that your godlike parents actually betrayed you when you were most vulnerable. So that's a very, very, very painful truth to admit that, even about one parent. But when you say both, it's like, oh my God. It's so painful to look at and say, wait a minute, when I was in my most need, my most vulnerable, they weren't there for me. That it's much, much easier to just say, no, I'm bad. I did something wrong. I was too needy. See, the thing is that as a kid, you can't be too needy. That's your job as a kid, to need. So it's not that you're too needy when you're a kid. It's that as an adult, because you didn't get the needs met, then you become too needy from other adults that doesn't make sense that you're trying to get so much from other adults. That's your 2-year-old shunya being like, oh, give me love, give me attention, And everybody has their own tactic on how to do it. But as a kid, so many parents will be like, oh, you were such a needy kid. It's not possible. That's the definition of being a kid. An adult means you can take care of yourself. A kid means you can't. That means you need your food, you need your shelter, you need someone to do your homework with you and play with you and listen to you, you need someone to validate your feelings. That's all part of being a kid. So when a parent says they're so needy, oh, that kid, that's so needy, it's really sad, actually. What I say is when the parent says, oh, that kid is so needy, I say, you are so unattuned. You're not attuned to what your child needs. If you were attuning to the child's needs, they wouldn't be needy. The reason why they keep crying is because you haven't figured out how to do it. The reason why they keep asking for more is because you haven't figured out how to satiate them. Just because you spend time with them doesn't mean you're satiating them. You have to read their heart. That maybe they have a physical need. Sometimes the parents are spending time, but they're ignoring them emotionally, you know? Or maybe they have an emotional, I mean, you have to wait and see what the thing is, but you know when when you've done it, because then they're relaxed. Then they go play. There's many studies that they show it on the video. They show the kid who's like insecurely attached, so they're always around mom. They'll put all these toys here. They don't want to go play. They want to sit on the mom's lap. They want to constantly be around the mom. That's called an insecure attachment. That's because the mom in that first year of life whatever was going on with her, the kid didn't securely attach. So now the kid doesn't feel comfortable even in the same room playing with toys. And if it's too extreme, then the kid doesn't. So one type is this insecure, anxious, you know, they just want to always be around mom. You know, they never want mom to go away, and they freak out if mom goes away. They can't enjoy anything else other than mom, 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 you know. Then there's another type who becomes avoidant, who's basically like, you know what, you hurt me too bad, I don't trust you, I give up, forget it. I don't even, you were just dead to me. So then they can't attach with anybody. So there's one who's trying to overly attach, and no matter how much they attach, they don't feel attached. And then the other type doesn't attach at all. That window has closed for them, and in a different way. In other words, I'm not going to open my heart to anybody. So when the mom leaves the room in this experiment, the kid doesn't react. It's like the mom didn't, I mean, the kid is supposed to be attached. The normal attachment would be you get upset, but you're not like unbearably upset. You're like, wait, where are you going? You're concerned, you know? And mom's like, I'm just going to the bathroom, I'll be right back. You play here with the caregiver. And the kid's like, okay, why? They have a secure attachment. They can trust another adult. But the insecure is like, oh, no, oh my God, no, I need you, look at me, let me sit with you, let me always be with you. That's this, you know, insecure attachment. And then the other type of insecure is this avoidant, where mom leaves and they're just anyway playing with the toys like she doesn't even exist. And those two types in adult relationships go together like that. Perfect. The one who's anxious, who never can get enough, who just always needs your love, and the one who basically ignores you all the time, and then it never works. Because one of them is completely shut down from their feelings and is never going to be able to open to you and really connect with you because it didn't happen with mom. And the other one is constantly like bleeding from, you know, always feeling rejected, always feeling unloved, always feeling, you know. And so then that one's going to choose this one. Because unconsciously, 100% for sure, this person can't give it to them because mom never did. And then this person likes that type. Why would the person who's avoidant like someone who's so needy, I mean not needy, but as an adult needy? As a little girl, no, but as an adult in a romantic relationship, why would somebody who is completely avoidant, doesn't want to attach at all, doesn't want to get close at all, is like allergic to that? Why would they like somebody who's feeling chronically rejected and unloved and needs the attention? What is the attraction from this side, do you think? The avoidant person's side? Go ahead, Vilas.
I think the avoidant person would feel valued by the anxious person, by the anxiously attached person. Because the anxiously attached person shows that I really value you, I really want to be with you. You are really,
Special.
Special, yeah.
Okay. So the avoidant person can feel valued. Okay. What else? Were you going to say something, Yanshri?
I was thinking that maybe the person who is very detached, he can identify with the person that, or may just think that, okay, like just identify that maybe yes, it is needed, like the attachment should be there. I'm not really sure, maybe I'm not sounding well.
So the one who's avoidant, who doesn't really feel their feelings and who is more aloof, you're saying that why would they be attracted to the one who's all about the feelings and always feeling unloved, rejected, all that? What's your reason?
Because no matter what, they had that need, what the other person is showing. So maybe they can identify with the need of the other person.
Okay. So in other words, maybe that other person's feelings, because they can identify in their childhood they used to feel like that brings alive that part of them or something. Again, I mean, because it's shut down now, but it reminds them of how they used to be or something?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to actually stop with I'm going to keep going. So what I want to say is the reason why is because there's many reasons, but one of them is that what you were saying, Yanshri, actually, that part of you that's shut down, it's very hard to get in touch with your feelings again from that point. So that person is representing a side of you that's dead, that you just can't get in touch with. So that's why it's so attractive for them, because they're like those types of people. They can't feel their feelings. They may go to therapy. They may take classes. They may learn the feelings wheel. They may be like, I feel excited, but it sounds like AI sounds better than them, actually. The AI robots sound better than them. They can actually have tonation in their voice, and I mean, I'm exaggerating, but the point is that they can't really feel something, So they're just learning. They're going through the motions, but it feels emotionally dead inside of them. They feel numb, because mom was so neglectful and never validated any of their feelings, and so now there's an adult. The juice of life is missing. Their feelings, right? So now here comes along someone who has feelings like 10 out of 10. Who's very, and so it's like, can you imagine, well, at least if you're American, we have fireworks, and it looks beautiful in the sky. They light all these bright lights, and they make noise, and that'd be the emotional one, And then imagine you're the other one on 4th of July, and you're looking at a blank sky, there's nothing. That's how their life is. It's so boring, it's so deadening when you have no feelings. So that's why it's very attractive to see somebody who has so many feelings, because it's the opposites attract. And then for the other one who has all those feelings, they're so attracted to the one who's not in touch with their feelings, who's completely numb, because they come across as being stable, and they actually are. They're stable because their emotions are not there. So they're stable, but it's really boring, actually. If you're a grounded person and you're in touch with your feelings and you're in touch with your intelligence, both of those would not be fun to date or marry, right? Because one of them is always emotional. There's always something going on emotionally with them, and the other one has no emotion. And you're just like, you're dating, you might as well just date a table, So that's why neither one is good. The emotional one is always a drama. And you feel like you're walking on eggshells with them. The other type is basically boring because there's no really love. You can't really express. They don't do anything spontaneous. It's all mapped out and planned out and rigid and nice and neat. And they can say the right things, but they're not feeling. They're not acting spontaneously on their feelings. So those are the two types, Those are the two types that really are attracted to each other. And that's why, I always say, like a broken record, do really good therapy before you get in a romantic relationship with someone, if you want that. Get crystal clear on yourself, work through your stuff so you're stable and you're grounded in yourself before you pick somebody. Otherwise, if you've got one of those two issues going on, guess who you're going to pick? It's so predictable, So the middle one is I have my feelings, but I take care of them because I have learned how to do that. I understand my triggers. I'm also intellectually, grounded. In other words, with my intelligence, I understand how I am, and I'm managing myself, and it's for the most part healed. It's not that I have, because then what happens is that's who comes to couples therapy. Two people who haven't done enough work on their own, and they're both coming with their wounded inner child. So now how's the therapist supposed to help you wound, 30 years of trauma, and now you're trying to work out a couples thing? It's really difficult, So that's why people, oftentimes I'll say, no, I'm not doing couples therapy, I need to see you first, yourself. And that could go for years before I'm willing to do couples therapy, And then I'll say, tell your partner to get a head start, and they should also go to therapy with a different therapist. You both do probably years of work until you're clear on your issues, you know how to manage them, and all that. And then let's see if you can come together, and if you even like that person. A lot of times you don't. Sorry to say, because who are you picking? You're picking somebody who's going to trigger your wound, usually. And then what are you going to do? You can't heal with dad, so now you're going to try to heal with this guy. You know, that's why these relationship cycles perpetuate. Your mom did it, you know, like in my family, my mom was with my father, an emotionally unavailable man. So who did I pick? Emotionally unavailable men, over and over and over again, you know? So that's what happens. And I'm trying to get whoever my boyfriend was at the time to now all of a sudden be the most attuned, loving, you know, person who my dad never was for me. How's that possible, you know? So I didn't understand all this because I learned it from Babaji. So if I had to rewind back, I would have not been out there trying to find love from a guy, number one, who can't give it, and number two, you know, from somebody who, it's not possible that I would have picked somebody else, you know? I mean, I kept picking the one who made me feel just how my dad feel, unseen, you know, unimportant, like not worth his time. And that's usually what happens in relationships. Because once you work through this on your own with a therapist and you work through it and you're digested, you have a whole different set of needs in a relationship. Because you're not looking for somebody to make you feel seen. You saw yourself. You're taking care of yourself. It's like, imagine that you go to have a very beautiful meal. You know, you're really hungry and you have a really beautiful meal. It's just perfect for you. It's not too much and it's not too little. It's satisfied all the pitta in you and you're just pacified and you feel... Are you going to want to, now just say your friend walks in the room and goes, hey, do you want to have a meal? Would you be like, yeah, let's have a meal? No, you're full. You're not stuffed. And you didn't eat too little. You ate just the right taste, just the right amount for you. It was the exact perfect meal. What are you going to want to do if somebody says, let's, you know, if your friend is coming with the food? You know, if you're full, what would you say? You'd probably say something like, you know, I'm happy to sit with you and talk, but I'm full. I'm full. So that'd be the idea in a relationship, whether it's romantic or not. In any relationship, whatever you have to do to get full before you open the door and go out into the world, fill yourself up in whatever it takes. And I would have to say unapologetically. Unapologetically, meaning you don't have to apologize for having needs, which is another thing we didn't learn in childhood. You know, I'm bad. So if I have a need that doesn't match with my mother's need or my father's need at any moment of any day, I'm bad. The default is I'm bad. I'm wrong, I'm bad. But that's not true. We all have a unique disposition, right? Our swabhava. We all have a unique prakriti. We all have a unique mind type. We all react differently to different situations. So that's a big life learning if you can figure out, okay, here's my need. Here are my needs based on my body type, my mind type, my swabhava, and I'm going to go for that unapologetically. And how would my life look if I just did that? You're not a jerk and you're not selfish. You're not insensitive, you're not unempathetic. We get all these messages that we're insensitive or unempathetic or selfish if we actually do what we need to take care of us. And we don't realize that if we don't do what we need, everything we need to feel calm and peaceful in our body and our mind and in our heart, then that means we're going to the dinner table with an empty stomach, you know. But the dinner table is, you know, our friend, our partner, even our therapist. We're trying to get more than the 1 hour that she's committed to or he's committed to, or also our guru. So much goes on the guru from people who don't understand actually what his role should be, you know, that he's not a therapist. He's not here to take care of all of the emotional problems of people, you know. That's for a therapist. And it cuts into his time when he has to do that, right? So that there's many lessons to be learned about where are my empty parts and how can I fill them, you know. And usually it's not so easy to see. That's why I always say, like, work with the therapist, figure out where the empty parts are, get help on how to fill them. There's nothing wrong with you if you have those empty parts. It happened. That's the parents you got, you know. And we have to think of it in a compassionate way, but then we have to do something about it. Just like how many days can you go, unless you're doing like intermittent fasting, but otherwise, how many days can you go without eating? Not that long. Your energy drains, you feel weak. So we feel some urgency to get food and get the right food and the right amount and the right taste. We have an urgency for that because our body starts breaking down if we don't. But we don't have that same urgency to get what we need emotionally. And the reason why is the urgency is not turning inward, it's going outward. We have the urgency just like we have for food, but it's the wires get crossed because we're trying to get it from somebody out there. And the reason why is the original person who needed to give us that emotional attunement was out there. Her name is Mom. Mom. Mother should have given it. That is damn right. For every child, mother should have been there for you emotionally, 100%. And if she wasn't, to the extent she wasn't, you're hungry and you're trying to get it from whoever you're making your mother or your father in the adult life, you know? So that's the problem. We have the right idea to get it and the urgency to get it, but who we're trying to get it from is the problem. As a kid, we should have gotten it from mom and dad. We didn't. But now as an adult, we should not be trying to get it from another person. And that's where all the issues come in all the relationships. If we can see that one point, that whatever you're looking for from somebody else, you have to figure out how to get it and take care of yourself and not use other people to get your emotional needs met, then relationships can be really easy, because then you're just showing up, you're just enjoying the time together. Maybe you're thinking of how you can help that person, not because you want them to love you, you know? Okay, I'm going to keep reading. Yes?
I heard you saying that in another class also. So the two personalities that you describe now, the one who is without feelings and the other one which is only feelings, are they both Sunya, or are they two different parenting styles?
The Shunya type is more like the very emotional one.
The emotional?
Yeah.
I thought first you said that he was empty and he didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
So how? I don't understand.
He's empty.
Oh.
He's feeling empty, which means he's chronically feeling rejected. He's feeling like I have nothing and I'm empty, so what do I need? I need you. I need your time. I need your attention. I need your love. And then guess what? When people give it, they feel rejected, even though they're actually being loved. They're so sensitive to being neglected that basically you can't fill it up. They're chronically feeling empty. Even if you shower love on them, they won't get it. They will still feel rejected.
And that's why you were saying they're all about emotions, because they don't have it.
Yeah.
So they're okay. And the other one that you said, who is
the avoidant
empty,
type. The avoidant type.
But both are this Sunya.
The other one is not, but we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
The other one's a different parenting style.
Oh.
But I haven't done more than Shunya in this class, you know, so I'm just kind of meditating on the Shunya. So, but that's a good question. The avoidant is a different type. That comes from a different parenting style. But Shunya is this one who's, it's confusing though.
Yeah.
So they're made to feel neglected, which means unloved, unseen, unlovable, and chronically rejected, which is the truth. That is how, that's not that that didn't happen. But because it got put in there so deeply, now any person they're in an adult relationship with, they're going to feel that same thing. So they're very emotional about it. They're feeling very chronically lonely, chronically rejected and abandoned. Those are the main feelings that they cycle between. Rejected, abandoned, and lonely.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. Okay, I'm going to read a little. So, okay. So we said, the last thing we said was powerful beliefs, right? They keep your faith alive, your parents, it's very, very difficult, right, to believe that your parents, and allow yourself to believe, right, that your parents actually betrayed you when you're most vulnerable. Your first step toward controlling your life is to face that truth for yourself. It will take courage, but if you're reading this book, you've already made a commitment to change. And that took courage too. That's really important, actually. If you're reading this book and you're showing up to this book club, right, you've already made a big change in your life. It takes a lot of courage to come here, to read this book, to talk about it, to hear these hard things, right? So sometimes we don't see how far we've already come and how hard we've been how many changes we've made, how much courage we've already had already, you know? And that helps to remind yourself of that so you can keep going and realize you're not at zero. You're not at starting point zero, you know? There's a lot of people, actually there's some people that I've invited to the club and they said, I don't want to hear it. So it's not that everybody wants to hear it. There's many people who know about it. They have no interest in it. Right? It's too painful to look at. Or the other option is they don't think, you know, they're still believing their parents are godlike, you know. Nothing wrong with my parents. Or they did, I mean, yeah, they did this or that, but they did so many good things. Why would I want to criticize them? Or that happened so long ago. They're so good now. Things have changed. you know, or it was in the past, what's the point? I mean, there's so many reasons not to sit here and look at the hard stuff. So that takes a lot of courage to listen and really introspect, and that's important. So I'm glad that she wrote that, said that. So here's a quote. "They never let me forget how I disgraced them." Sandy, 28, a striking brunette who seemed to, quote unquote, have it all, was seriously depressed when she first came to see me. She told me that she was unhappy with everything in her life. She had been a floral designer for several years at a prestigious shop. She had always dreamed of opening her own business, but she was convinced that she wasn't smart enough to succeed. She was terrified of failure. Sandy had also been trying to get pregnant for more than 2 years with no success. As we talked, I began to see that her inability to get pregnant was causing her to feel strong resentment toward her husband and inadequate in their relationship, despite the fact that he sounded genuinely understanding and loving. A recent conversation with her mother had aggravated the issue. This whole pregnancy has become a real obsession with me. When I had lunch with my mom, I told her how disappointed I was. She said to me, "I'll bet it's that abortion you had. The Lord works in mysterious ways." I haven't been able to stop crying since. She never lets me forget. So oftentimes, you know, when you think of the role of mother, I'm going to say the ideal mother, okay, the authoritative type, that is not what she would say, right? I mean, obviously, if you have empathy, you're thinking, my daughter's depressed, she's sad, she really wants to get pregnant, she's been trying for 2 years, she's having a hard time. The authoritative mother should be that one person in her life who always says the kind thing, who always says the compassionate thing, you know? So for her to turn to her mother with basically her broken heart, which she's feeling so down, and her mother kicked her in her probably most vulnerable spot, reminding her that she had an abortion, which means, you know, you could have had a kid. See, it was your choice to kill that baby, and now look at you. I mean, it's so mean, you know, it's so hurtful to say that to your own daughter, you know, and it makes you as a woman really hate yourself, right? Feel so much shame and just self-hatred and just, like you just want to, you know, die, probably. She probably felt like she just wanted to shrivel up and die when her own mother said that to her. But do you see how obviously her mother did not say this as a one-off? That's not like, oh, my mother's just so wonderful, nice, and she said this one off-color remark. No, that's a personality problem for someone to say that, right? Which means Sandy, at age 28, is still thinking her mother's a safe person to reveal her heart to. And this is what I'm saying. It goes so deep. This godlike, you know, your mother's godlike. So her mother has been probably most likely mean to her whole life, saying mean little digs at her, right? It doesn't mean she doesn't say nice things. I bet the mom says really nice things too, and that's why it's confusing. That's why it's very confusing. It's not so obvious, you know. And so, but her mom just basically punched her in the stomach. But I bet if maybe, you know, if you look back, if we could have a little CCTV and watch her life, there's probably 100 of those punches the mom's done. But she doesn't see any. And when she's in a place of need and desperation, she goes to the very person who's been abusing her all along. It's so sad. But that's how it goes. And I'm just pointing it out because I see it every day in therapy with my clients. I'm like, why would you go to that person? I mean, I've never met the person, but I've heard so many stories. I don't know why you went to that person of all the people to go for help, you know? So it's very common if you're not aware of that pattern. I asked her about the abortion. After some initial hesitancy, she told me the story. It happened when I was in high school. My parents were very, very strict Catholics, so I went to a parochial school. I developed early, and by the time I was 12, I was 5'6", I weighed 130 pounds, and I wore a size 36C bra. Boys started paying attention to me, and I really liked it. It drove my dad crazy. The first time he caught me kissing a boy goodnight, he called me a whore, so loud that the whole neighborhood heard. God. So teenagers are very, very, very sensitive. We've all been there, right? When you're a teenager, you're very sensitive, especially about how you look. You know, your body's changing, it's all these weird things are happening to your body, and you're very usually insecure, at least for some part of it, right? And the number one person who needs to be in your corner is, or number two people, mom and dad, they need to be confirming, you know, how you look and how you're changing and how beautiful you are, how strong or handsome or whatever. I mean, they shouldn't be lying and saying, oh, you're the next swimsuit model if you're not, right? But they should be acknowledging your beauty, whether it's your eyes, your hair, something about you, not to glorify you, but to make you not so insecure. And especially if you're going, oh my God, something, I feel weird. They should acknowledge that you're feeling that, but also remind you of how beautiful you are inside and out, something like that. But then this, it's like the father calling her like a whore. I mean, she will never forget those words. And she may even become one because of that. You know, I mean, father's words are so, remember, father's job is to help you see your swabhava. So there it is, whore. And if your father calls you that, I mean, you might just feel so defeated at that point and say, well, if he says I'm a whore, I might as well do it. I've heard stories like that. Well, that's what he said I am, so what's the point? What's the point of even trying now? I was trying to get his love. That's why she probably did it in the first place. It's not because she was physically developing. It doesn't matter if you're 8 when you physically develop. It matters if you're a girl, your relationship with your father. That's going to determine how sexually promiscuous you are. You know, if you're secure with your father, you feel loved, you feel confident in yourself, you feel, you know, peaceful with who you are because he sees you, you're not going to be running around at 12 having sex with boys. So she's doing it. Yes, she developed and the boys were attracted to her, but she's doing it because she's looking for father's love. And that's why she got thrown off as soon as the boys thought she was attractive. In other words, take another girl whose father was in her life and very loving. They had a nice bond, and she's 12, but she has big boobs and she's looking sexy to the boys. She would be like, oh my God, no. Why? Because she respects herself. Why? Because her father respects her. So this is the opposite. I mean, he made the whore. He made the whore. She's not a whore. You know? It was downhill from there. See, every time I went out with a boy, Dad told me I was going to hell. He never let up. I figured I was damned anyway. So when I was 15, I slept with the guy. So for those of you who don't know English terminology, right, it means slept with means had sex. So when I was 15, I had sex with this guy. Just my luck, I got pregnant. When my folks found out, they went nuts. Then I told them I wanted an abortion, and they totally lost it. They must have screamed at me about mortal sin 1,000 times. If I wasn't going to hell already, they were sure that this would clinch it. The only way I could get them to sign a consent was to threaten to kill myself. So this is what happens in many cases, you know, when the parents are not understanding, when the parents have no empathy, you know, and when the parents, you know what, take no responsibility, none. I mean, the dad's calling her a whore. He's so like unconnected, unloving, unattuned to her. The mother too, you know, she's a woman herself. She should understand and say, oh my God, and she should stand up to the dad. But both of them like together are against her, and they're just trashing her, and to the point that she's threatening suicide. Because those two people, are the mom and dad, are the ones who you're supposed to be your safe cushion. You should always feel safe at home, always. And so if they're not making you feel safe, you don't feel like you should exist. What is the point? Where are you going to feel safe if you don't feel loved and safe by the people who created you? You know? I asked Sandy how things went for her after the abortion. She slumped down in her chair with a dejected look that made my heart ache. Talk about a fall from grace. I mean, Dad made me feel horrible enough before, but now I felt like I didn't even have a right to exist. The more ashamed I felt, the harder I tried to make things right. I just wanted to turn back the clock and get back the love I had when I was little. But they never miss a chance to bring it up. They're like a broken record about what I did and how I disgraced them. I can't blame them. See, I can't blame them. I should have never done what I did. I mean, they had such high moral expectations for me. Now I just want to make it up to them for hurting them so bad with my sins. So I do anything they want me to do. It drives my husband crazy. He and I get in these huge fights about it, but I can't help it. I just want them to forgive me. So this is like such a loaded thing. There's so many problems with what she's saying and what she's thinking, you know. And it's all from the childhood of this idea of the parents are gods, you know? You see how it's all, everything's her fault. She's bad, she's wrong. She didn't say anything about trying to explain her side of it, like why I did it and how she's angry at them that they weren't supportive. So she doesn't see what their role should be, you know? And the saddest part to me out of all that is that she's saying, I'm just trying to get the love I had as a child. But I can guarantee you, with how they're acting as adults, she never had the love. She never had it. There's no love as a child. The only thing is that as a child, remember how I've said before, your buddhi's not developed. So she can't see that it wasn't love. So she's trying to get something she never had and that doesn't exist from people who can't give it. And that is the story of most people's life who are shunya. So the first thing we have to see clearly is they didn't have it to give, so they didn't give it, so we didn't get it. That's very important to see, because her faulty logic starts there. I was just trying to get the love I had as a child. No, you didn't have it, because if they loved you, first of all, you wouldn't be sleeping around with boys and kissing boys when you're 12. You know, you're doing that not just because your body's changing. That's a good excuse, but that's not it. And if you're a boy and you're doing it, that means you didn't have the secure attachment with mother, you know? So if you're securely attached to your parents, you don't do that because you respect yourself and they've talked it through in an authoritative way and you understand the consequences of your behavior and you trust them. You know, you trust, okay, I don't want to get pregnant or I don't want to get a girl pregnant. And also I respect myself and my body and I'll wait for the time when it's the right time, when I'm emotionally mature enough to actually be in a sexually intimate relationship. None of that happens if you didn't have, you know, if you had parents who were not authoritative, you know. But her thing is she's chasing after something that she can never get, you know, and that's sad. And all of her logic goes from that point. I'm just trying to get the love I had when I was a child, you know. And now she feels like she didn't even have a right to exist. But the truth is that she also felt like that as a kid. It just wasn't as obvious. And that's why all of her behavior as a kid was trying to probably get their love, because she made them feel like she didn't exist. And the reason why I'm saying that is, let's do an opposite scenario. You were raised in an authoritative type of family, right? With the loving mother and father. They're very warm and loving, but there's structure and they explain things and they make boundaries. If that's the case, and if this situation happened, or you had an abortion when you were 15, you know, you would not feel that you don't exist because your parents aren't talking to you. Because the samskaras have been formed in the first 7 to 10 years of life. You're very solid. You know you exist. You know you're a good person. You know you're competent. And if your parents are choosing at this point, like randomly, you know, maybe your mom's going through menopause and she's really moody, or I don't know, some excuse where she loses it, but it's not your whole personality. Her whole personality up until age 15 was not like that, mom and dad. And for some reason they lose it on this point. You will have confidence in yourself. You're not going to feel like you don't exist. You're not going to want to kill yourself, because 15 years of a solid relationship being built with them, and those are the most important years, those first 7 to 10. It's built, it's solid. So that's what I'm saying. The things she's saying come from childhood. She's been feeling like she doesn't exist all along. Does that make sense? It's a very deep analysis of that, of her statements now that are not really actually just what's happening now. It's very deep, some scars that were made way long time ago that are coming up, including the faulty thinking that I'm going for the love from them that I used to have. No. And I feel like I don't exist now. No, you never felt like you existed. That's why you compromised yourself in ways you shouldn't have, you know, at too young of an age when you weren't emotionally ready for that. Because there's nobody looking out for you. And you're desperate for love. Okay, so we ended here, right? The only way I could get them to sign a consent was to threaten to kill myself. And then she asked, you know, how she felt, a fall from grace. We read that, right? I can't help it. I just want, that's not going to take too long to answer because we have 1 minute.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Maybe you could start.
So they had a whole, in the ancient time, they had a family structure where first of all the mother and the father knew their role. I'm mother, here's what I need to do. I'm father, here's what I need to do, first of all. Second of all, they had God at the center. You know, they weren't just off on their own. Third of all, they were an extended family. So just say there was some mother who had some mental issue, you know, who had some chemical imbalance, just say, who had some postpartum depression or something. There's probably at least 3 other women in the family who were stable, you know, and solid, you know. So, and also, especially in Indian culture, the focus is on the collective, on the whole family, whereas in the Western cultures, a lot of times it's focused on me. You know, we're like, what I need to do, what I need to do for me as the mother, you know, and instead of like, I'm thinking about the whole family, how I'm affecting all the other family members, you know, and how and the family members all give each other feedback. It's a collective versus an individual. And that's very different, you know. So even if the mother was moody, she'd be thinking, oh, this isn't good for my kid. Let me get my sister to help out. I'm having a hard time right now. You know, and if she wasn't really not able to see it, maybe she had schizophrenia, you know, that did exist back then too. So, but other family members would see it and they would take care of her, not at the expense of the kid, you know. So I think the family was built in. They knew their roles more clearly. They also were, you know, God was at the center. So those are all things that make the family stable and make people's minds more stable. Plus they practiced Ayurveda. You know, they practiced a daily routine. They did a lot of things to be sattvic. Okay? Okay. So I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for being here. Haribo.